Hello, this video is on the Browse tab and brought to you by Nelson Systems Incorporated. I'll be using an Eventide Nextlog DX model recorder with software version 2024.1. When you first log into MediaWorks, you'll have three default tabs displaying: the Browse tab, Search tab, and Channels tab. For this session, we'll cover the Browse tab. When the Browse tab first loads, your resources will be minimized. Click the plus sign to the left of the resources, and this will show you all the months the system has been in operation. Expand the month, you'll see the dates available. Expand a day, and you'll see the resource groups and individual resources that have recordings for that day. If a channel is not listed here, it did not have any recordings for that day. You do have an option on how you view your resources. Above the word resources, you have a button that says show. If you click on that, you have the option to choose resource name grouped by recorder, channel number grouped by recorder. The resource name is the default. Resource name grouped by recorder will give the recorder and the same list of channels. And then the channel number grouped by recorder again shows the recorder, and then when expanded out will show the individual channels. This is helpful when working with a dynamic integration that may use a same channel for various dynamic channels through the integration. So we may have one logical channel on the recorder that's recording for several different phones or radios depending on the type of integration. So again, the default will be resource name. And once you have the date selected that you want to view recordings for, if you have resource groups set up, you can select one of those and it will then show you the list of recordings for all the channels within that resource group. Or you can select your individual channels and view the recordings on that channel. You are not able to select multiple resources to view in the Browse tab. It is a single resource per day. Once you have your list selected, you can double click on recording to begin playback. For more information on playing back recordings, view our video on playback. The results list has default columns that will be displayed. To add additional columns, right click on one of the column headers and it will give you a list of the available columns in the database to select from. Not all fields will have information for every recording, so depending on what type of integration or what type of recording you're looking for, you may have data showing in some of the columns and not others. If you have groups set up for the custom fields, you'll see those groups listed. This system has a CAD group, Prepared 911, Radio, Rapid SOS, Speech Factor AI, Speech to Text, Telephony, and then below that are the individual fields. To add a field, simply left click on that field to add it to the list. So if we wanted to view our notes, we could click on Note and add the Note column. To rearrange the columns, left click on a column header and drag it to your new location, and you can move the columns around in whichever order you like. Once you have the columns set up the way you like, you can right click on one of the column headers, and at the top of the list you have an option to save current columns layout as default. Click on that, it'll let you know that your default columns have been saved, and this will need to be set up on each type of tab. The Browse tab can have its own defaults, the Search tab can have its own defaults, and if you're using an Instant Recall tab, it can have its own defaults. So those will have to be set up individually for each tab. The default columns are useful for if you right click on the tab and close it and then you need to open up a new one, or if you want to have multiple of the same tab open, then when you open the new tab it will have the default columns for you. Below the results list is the timeline. The timeline will show you visually the recordings. So if we select one in the list above or in the timeline, it will highlight in both locations. The timeline is helpful for when viewing multiple channels in a resource group. You can see when those recordings happened in relation to the other recordings that you're viewing at the time. When viewing the results list, you can sort the entries by the column headers. So left clicking on a column header will first sort ascending, and then if you click again it will sort descending, and it'll toggle back and forth each time you click on it. So right now our start time is sorted descending. We can see the little down pointing blue arrow on the right hand side. If we left click that again, the arrow is now pointing up, and we can see that the start times are now going in an ascending order. You can also sort by caller ID, so if you wanted to group together the calls that came from the same number during that time, you can see it that way as well. You can also do a secondary sort, so if you hold down Shift and click on another field, it will also do a secondary sort. And then you can hold down Shift and left click again to change that secondary sort order from ascending to descending. So you can then group together by agent name, caller ID, notes, or any other information that you may want to do a secondary sort with. While using the Browse tab, if you want to look for new recordings that have came in since loading that resource, you can click on the blue circular arrows to the right of the date you're browsing. It'll refresh the list from the database and show you a current list of recordings. This concludes the video. Thank you for watching.